And so now it's the last statement here that really causes a lot of problems for people. So you got Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He's leading us home. But then you got this crazy statement, right? No one comes to the Father. No one gets home except through me. And so if you're not a Christian or you haven't been around Christians a lot, sure, in this moment, maybe you're thinking, brother, you can't be serious. It's 2016, man. You still thinking kind of that backwoods, if it's not Jesus, there's no other way but Jesus. Surely you don't believe that. I mean, I just can't believe that a guy in 2016 would boldly preach something so absurd in a church. Are you really telling me over half the world's population isn't ever going to get home? Yeah, I believe that. And let me try to explain why I believe that, because I think if I can lay my case before you, you would see why we would believe that. The world's major religions are all built on the antithesis of what the Christian religion is built out of. And here's what I mean by that. At the center of most of the world's religions is what's called moralistic deism. Be good enough to be accepted by this God. That here's the list of things that if I do these things, this God will accept me. That's Islam, that's Judaism, right? That's if you'll just do these things, then God will accept you in. Now, what does that do? That forces us back to self-righteousness. It forces us to try to forge a righteousness of our own. And when you do that, you have no choice but to live a duplicitous life. Let me give you a stunning example. The radical Muslims that flew the plane into the towers on 9/11, do you know what they did on 9/10? They stayed in hotels in Boston and in New York. And you know what they did that night? They rented pornography. The receipts from those hotel rooms. So here's the most radicalized Muslims imaginable who are so dedicated to earn the approval of their God that they're gonna kill thousands of people the next day, and they spend their last night on earth ordering expensive meals and watching porn in seedy hotel rooms. Do you see the duplicity there? When the Navy SEALs crashed into Osama's compound and they pulled all the computer, you know what was littered throughout? Some of the most vile, disgusting pornography imaginable. You see the disjoint? Let me project radical dedication. What's in the background? Seedy wickedness. Because look at me, I love you enough to say, you're terrible at being good. You just are. You're terrible at it. So the way we usually play this game, if you're a guest, is we play the 10 Commandment pop quiz. So here's what I mean by that. Not like, oh, don't start stressing right now. Saw some of you go, 10 Commandments. If he calls on me, I'm going to nail it. No. Here's, I'm not going to ask you to list them, but I will just say this. When I was a kindergartner, 5 years old, in the Bay Area, the 10 Commandments hung on the wall in my school, which means they thought in the Bay Area that a 5-year-old would get these things. So let's just argue, they're not complex ethics, right? They're not like, I don't know, it's just straightforward morality, right? So let's take the quiz real quick. Do you love things with more dedication and more fervor than you love God? You don't have to answer, I know it. Yes, you do. So do I. Are you guilty of taking the Lord's name in vain? That has nothing to do with cussing. I think that was co-opted by parents a long time ago. That means that we would treat the name of God lightly. And so maybe that can fit in that category, but it's more like indifference towards God, a lack of reverence for God. So that's absolutely true about every one of us. And look, I know you're not a liar. You just lie sometimes. It's cool. You're not a liar. Just, every once in a while you lie. And you hadn't committed adultery maybe, but your hearts are filled with lust. You maybe hadn't murdered anybody, but your heart's filled with anger. You at times get really frustrated when good things happen to people you don't think good things should happen to. And you love it when bad things happen to people you think deserve them. That's called coveting. That puts you in the position of God to judge others, right? We could just keep going. My point is this. You make a 0. And God is not into the self-esteem movement. He's not going to let you take it again next week with open notes this time, right? You are going to over and over and over again fail this test. And here's why. Because the 10 Commandments were not given to you because you were going to be able to obey them, but to show you at the very base level you would never be able to. And so the reason here, Jesus can say moralistic deism cannot get you home is because the human heart cannot rest in any righteousness other than an alien righteousness that's better than its own. So you get to rest when Jesus pays my bill and I don't owe. I get to rest. And if you think that means we don't strive for holiness, you're not hearing that right, because the Spirit of God, when he invades this space, begins to compel us towards obedience. In fact, the objective evidence of being born again is a desire to be obedient, imperfectly executed. Because I hadn't met the brother yet that would try to argue that he's perfectly executing obedience to God. We don't perfectly, Christ perfectly. That's why he's the way, the truth, and the life.